Yeah. Wake up with coffee and sports. Sunrise glow, listen coast to coast. A flow like you know.
Offensively, who made them? Oh, Patrick Mahomes.
Sideline to sideline with plays to show. This network's got the spark.
When you put up 300 yards rushing against someone, that you got your butt whooped.
I feel like I would have liked to see Oregon Ohio State in the semis, not the quarters. So I think some reseeding is probably where I would change. But
they're out of their mind. They're going to do this 3 quarterbacks in a row.
Here's the crazy.
I just can't take it.
Birds keep flying high, fans cheering loud, and one podcast moving through the crowd. Needy boys brawling, no holds barred bout. This wire life never in doubt. Tune into the vibe.
That's my bold prediction for the show. Devin Booker, in the next 3 years, he will be a Houston Rocket.
Because I still think Seth is still at the top of his game. I do. I think he's right there. Who knows? Maybe not this year, but one time soon. Why wouldn't we potentially see Seth and Roman? You know what I mean?
Tune in the vibe. Party Reds, good centers. Got me on the mic now, let's spill the tea. Talking courtside dreams from history. Legends on the blacktop now and then. From Will to Steph, we hit it again. Better chimes in, let's go deep. Young bloods rising, can't skip a beat. Puppy prospects with fire in their eyes. Draft night suckers and hoop dream highs. Wire to wire, bring the heat. Podcast magic can't be beat. Do better, but roll better. We're hoop heads, trendsetters.
What's poppin', y'all? It is your boy, it is Guard E3, and welcome back to the And One Podcast. Of course, joined by the greatest co-host of all time, but tonight my rival because our teams are playing right now, Mo Better. How you doing, Mo?
I'm doing good on a Thursday night. This is the beginning of our double-double. We do that big time. We're going hard, right, with And One, and then we'll be back tomorrow morning with coffee and sports in the morning. So I'm ready to talk some hoops.
No, absolutely. And you know how we got to start out, Mo? Underrated player of the week. If you're just tuning in every week, we like to start out with an underrated player or team of the week. Could be current or historical. So without any further ado, Mo, do you got anybody you want to highlight for underrated player of the week?
You know what? I'm going to go with a guy who wasn't a star, but he starred in his role. I'm going to go with a guy that's been a good veteran, good locker room presence, solid player on both ends of the floor, veteran who had a long career, Taj Gibson. I'm just a big fan of guys like that who are, I think they're workers, they're overachievers, they're cultural guys, the kind of guys that you can take and put under their wing, take rookies under their wing. Everywhere Taj Gibson has played at, he's impacted on the floor, and he's even more impactful, I think, in the locker room and in the community. So I just want to shout out a guy who's been a pro's pro, and just a really good basketball player and a good guy, Taj Gibson.
Hey, absolutely. Todd Thibodeau would absolutely agree with you. That is one guy that he always brings back whenever he gets the chance. And, you know, it's for good reason. He's a just all-around professional, can always teach these young guys how to act. He's a great role model for everybody. So I do love the Taj Gibson. Mo, I'm going to use mine on a Bucks legend that unfortunately passed away this week. I'm talking about Junior Bridgman. Junior Bridgman, as great as he was on the court, even better off of it. This is a guy who was, he invested in the food chain Wendy's, made like $600 million off the court, and he was like a thorough competitor on it. So my underrated player I want to show some love to, Bucks legend, got his jersey retired and everything, Junior Bridgman, rest in peace. Thoughts and prayers for your family at this time and friends.
I like that one a lot. Junior Bridgman was a really good basketball player, but an even greater winner outside of basketball as a businessman and entrepreneur. great philanthropist in terms of what he did in the community, giving back. So I want to shout that out. I love the Junior Bridgman pick because it's amazing to see guys elevate themselves outside of basketball. Basketball kind of gave him a foot into the door, but he did everything else on his own outside of basketball. So shout out to Junior Bridgman. Rest in peace. A special rest in peace also to a guy that I remember watching in the 90s, Oliver Miller, more known for his time with the Phoenix Suns. Rest in peace, Oliver Miller.
Yeah, no, absolutely. A tough week for the NBA community. We lost a couple of greats. Normally this is where I start out with puppy prospects, but I'm trying to. I got a little distracted. I don't necessarily have one for you guys today. I'm going to be honest. I'm trying to put together a draft board right now, so I kind of got distracted doing that. But what I want to start out with, Mo, is something we haven't done in a minute. A Do Better with Mo Better, one of my favorite segments we do. And before we get to that, though, we got John Suggs in the chat. Appreciate you, John.
What's up, John?
How far you see the Lakers dropping to 5th?
That's where I project they're going to be. Depending if LeBron is out the full 2 weeks, my guess is they'll drop to at least 5th. Because the West is already very closely knit when you look at 2nd through 5. So yeah, look, I think Luka's going to try to hold down the fort, but I expect they will drop to 5th because now everything is on Luka's shoulders. So it's going to be a lot different.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're kind of already seeing the problems with that actually already in this game. The Bucks are just absolutely, selling out to stop Luka right now. And they're saying, all right, you know what? DFS, Austin Reeves beat us. And they just haven't been able to. So say a Luka-led team only having 74 points through, almost 3 quarters. Unthinkable. So it's going to be a rough couple weeks, and I think the 5th seed is a very realistic spot for them. What's up, Jory? Been stressful as a Laker girl? Fair enough. And speaking of the Lakers, Mo, my Do Better with Mo Better, somebody who I think needs to do better, former Laker. Now, and he's a guy that I've always loved, right? And it sucks because this is like watching one of your, favorites slowly just kind of age, and you're just like, oh, he's not the guy or player he once was. And it just gets painful to watch after a while. And that's the way I'm feeling about Shaquille O'Neal right now as an analyst. This is a guy who, growing up, Grant, I can't say I did. My grandma had it. She gave it to me, and I listened to, Shaq Diesel's, 1992 Shaq Diesel album over and over again. Growing up, I love the Big Aristotle. He was fantastic. But I can't do it anymore, Mo. I can't. I can't. Watching him trying to be an analyst in 2025 is like me trying to show somebody, hey, look, there's Tracy McGrady. He's one of the all-time greats, except he's on the Spurs, and you can't really tell. That's how I feel about Shaq. That man is more washed so far than Tracy McGrady on the Spurs. This guy he comes out, he goes, yeah, I don't care about Detroit. No, they're under 500. Then he gets told that they're actually 7 games over 500. Then he moves the goalpost immediately. He goes, well, I don't want to talk about any teams that aren't 40-20. And then it's, oh, well, are they going to win a chip? And then later in the same day, he goes, yeah, I want to give credit to their head coach and Chauncey Billups, who doesn't even coach them. So I think that should be a sign, right? Like, I get it. He's a legend, and you want to, give him his props, but I think the longer that Shaq stays in the booth as an analyst, it just hurts his legacy because he's making it abundantly clear he doesn't watch the product. He doesn't care about the product. Like, he himself just kind of, outed himself if it wasn't painfully obvious beforehand. He is becoming what is wrong with the NBA media coverage.
I think that's a strong take. I think it's an accurate take. Let's be clear on two things. I don't really consider Shaquille O'Neal a media member. I think that when I look at Shaquille O'Neal, if I'm going to make a comp, he's like the R-Truth of the NBA. I think he's like for comic relief. The problem is that he's stuck in this weird purgatory. He's not as funny or as entertaining as Charles is, and he's not nowhere near the analyst as Kenny is. Look, Shaq's a great player, but he's actually proving a point that I've made a long time ago. Just because you played the game, and in his case, he didn't just play it, he excelled at it. He's an all-time great. Doesn't mean you know the game. He doesn't know the game that made him a household name. He doesn't know the game that made him a rich man or the brand that he is. He doesn't. And this isn't breaking news. He never has. He's not a historian of basketball. Even in present NBA, he's not knowledgeable. Whatever knowledgeable things come out of Shaq's mouth, I promise you, an intern that he hired gave him that piece of knowledge. Look, I'm used to it, and I feel that he has enough of a fan base that they'll shrug it off and go, "Man, Shaq's done more than you'll ever do. You never." All factual statements. He's an all-time great player. I'd never played professionally. There's no debate to be had, and he's on a huge platform. TNT, Inside the NBA, best of the best in their peak, doing what they do because Ernie keeps the ship running. But as an analyst, come on, man. Shaquille O'Neal has never been an analyst. And I think TNT recognized that a long time ago when they hired him. They knew what they were hiring wasn't an analyst. They were hiring a personality. They were hiring a star. And that's what he's been all these years.
Yeah, it's just frustrating because you're kind of. I think the R-Truth, like it would be like if WWE paid R-Truth $5 million and then put him in the main event of WrestleMania with his current character, and you're just like, and to a lot of outsiders and casuals, that might be entertaining, but if you're actually watching the product, you're like, dog, I love R-Truth, but I don't want to see this, and that's almost my problem with Shaq is they put him in like the analyst spot. They're like, we're kicking it to inside the NBA to break down the action. And then they just don't break anything down. So, I wouldn't mind if Shaq had his own show somewhere on ESPN. Let him run his podcast live with the rest of the guys or something. I don't know. But it's the fact that they put him in a spot to analyze the game and then he just proceeds to never do. That's what drives me crazy. Don't put him in that main event slot, the halftime show during the game. Find a different spot for him, and I think he gets received much better.
No, look, I think you're right, but like I said, you and I, and maybe a small amount of people see it one way. At the end of the day, because he's such a huge star, and he was such a great player when he did play, I think people just overlook that because he is beloved by millions of people. He really is. And I think they're willing to look past the fact whether he knows what he's talking about or not, which, by the way, that's not breaking news. There are a lot of pundits that are on huge platforms that really don't know what they're talking about. So if we're going to just, we can mention Shaq for sure, because I'm with you 100%, but he's not alone in that played the game but don't know the game thing. He's not alone on that team. It's a pretty lengthy squad.
Yeah, absolutely. And to be clear, I still love Shaq. I still listen to occasionally. I'll dabble in some Shaq Diesel albums. I do like Shaq. I just don't like the position he's in. It just feels so out of place. And it feels like now, you're starting to see kind of more and more pushback, after that whole Pistons debacle. What's he doing here? Why is he breaking down this game? So I almost think, too, it'd be smart for them to just maybe move him to a different spot. And I think that would, maybe help the perception a ton.
Let me ask you a question.
Hey, Stephen A just got supermaxed. What's up?
Yeah, I was going to ask you, what were your thoughts on the Stephen A. Smith situation with LeBron? What were your feelings on that? I believe we talked about it on Monday on the morning show, but I'd be interested in your take.
That is so stupid. Okay, so I didn't mind what he said at first, right, on Monday, because he goes, "Oh, that's just a father, protecting his son, and I get it. It seemed like they had an understanding on Monday. I have a problem now. Is he has now talked about it like 5 times since, and every single time some detail changes, right? Because the problem I have with him all of a sudden changing his tune and going, he didn't have to do that. He didn't have to come confront me courtside. You go back and look at Stephen A's history. He's the guy that said, well, if a player has a problem with me, I'm courtside. I'm at these games. This is a guy who, first he was okay with it, and then he wants to switch up, even though he said multiple times in the past, you want to come talk to me, go. I'm courtside. Come talk to me. But when it happens, now he's got a problem with it? Come on. I didn't mind it I didn't mind what he did at first, but this switch up is just wild. What he's done since Monday.
I find it interesting that he was really humbled and almost apologetic on Monday. And then when he realized how viral that moment was, he was like, I should take advantage of this, right? I mean, that's kind of the switch up, because then he starts making this media world tour on all these different shows. He even goes on Gil's Arena, right? And he brings it up there. But when he brings it up there, by the time he gets to Gil's Arena, the story's changed, and his version of it, he becomes more aggressive, right? You shouldn't have came up in front of me and done he's flipped it around, and now he's talking strong again. And I'm like, look, like I said when we talked about it on the morning show, I don't think there's anybody with clean hands in this situation. Stephen A. Smith trying to judge LeBron on what kind of father he is, he was out of pocket. He was flat out wrong. If he had just stuck to, I'm criticizing Bronny the player and he's not that good a player, he would have been good. But it's not his place or anybody's place to tell LeBron what kind of parent he is. Look, your relationship with your kids, with your family, is your business. I thought Stephen A was way out of bounds. On the other side, again, look, LeBron is a very well-rehearsed person, and he doesn't do anything spur of the moment. Even when he walked up to Stephen A, I don't think that was spur of the moment. I think he planned to do it because he's very PR savvy. And while it looked like, keep my son out of your mouth and all these tough words, I thought he made it about him, which he tends to do. Like I said, I don't think there's anybody that's a winner or has clean hands in that situation.
Yeah, and like I said, that's why I didn't try to make it seem like LeBron was perfect, because I don't think he was. It definitely seemed like he put the onus more on him, which was weird. But yeah, it's just the fact that he decided he needed to realize he wasn't getting enough media attention or whatever, and decided to go on this LeBron hater world tour. That's the wild part. Oh yeah, I was gonna say, yeah, that's the guy. That's Nick Wright. Yeah. Say even Jory going on a world tour because you got checked a lot by Bron is corny. And Cottrell loves the Cleveland jersey. If you didn't see it before, it is a J.R. Smith.
Do you still love that jersey? No, I'm just kidding. Of course you do.
I do. J.R. Smith is one of my favorite players of all time. So
they don't win that. He's not the best or second best. But if he doesn't come out in that second half and hit those massive threes in that game, it literally turned the game around. I don't think people realize how big those shots were in terms of giving the Cavs momentum and shaking, and it shook the Warriors.
Yeah, and also the part I always point out when people try to blast him, because it's well, he made that blunder in game 1 of 2017. It's yeah, but they don't win the finals without him, because not only that, guess what? If JR doesn't hustle back on defense, Iggy's just dunking that ball on the fast break. LeBron was able to chase that down because JR got back and bought LeBron an extra second to come from behind.
He made Iggy have to step through, right? That he made him have to pick up his dribble and step through. It's still to this day, in my opinion, LeBron's block is the greatest defensive play And you can call it out of pocket, but in my opinion, it's the greatest defense to play in NBA history. In my opinion, even though we do need to give JR his flowers because he set LeBron up and LeBron delivered.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think that is just the greatest and most iconic defensive play in NBA history, the chase down. It's definitely one of the more difficult blocks in NBA history. If we're talking about difficult blocks in NBA history, shout out to, Giannis, game 4 against Phoenix.
Ayton, yeah.
Yeah, when he somehow played the pick and the roll, which you don't really ever see happen.
He did something I've never seen. He showed, recovered, and then elevated and blocked the shot like that. He did 3 different things in one play.
Yeah, it like when people would talk about the greatest blocks of all time, the first couple that come to mind are like LeBron, but then I'm like, yeah, like I know guys like, Hakeem and Dwight, like they have more impactful blocks than Giannis, but what he did in that moment just might be the second greatest block I've ever seen when you take into consideration, like from start to finish.
I rank that block by Giannis above any block that Dwight Howard ever did, above any block that a lot in terms of situation. I don't think he's a better shot blocker, but in terms of the moment, I don't think Olajuwon's had a bigger moment than that moment.
Yeah, absolutely. So, John has a question. Mo, I'll let you, lead off with this one. What does Joker have to do to get MVP, or what does SGA have to not do? So, pretty much, Joker and Shea, they're vying for the MVP. What would each side need to do in order to lock it up for themselves?
I think for Shea to lock it up, he just needs to not let his foot off the pedal, right? He's uniquely efficient, and all he really needs to do is continue doing what he's done all year long. And with Joker, I think that because I believe the Nuggets are second in the West right now. I believe they're second right now. I don't think they catch the Thunder. But if Joker could have a few more insane number, I mean, he has them, but I think he can have some more to where it puts doubt in some voters and go, I don't know, SGA is really, really good, but this guy just went for 40, 15, and 50. Like, Joker has those kind of games. He does. The thing that I think gets lost in this argument is Joker's impact offensively greater than Shea's impact on both of the floor, on both sides of the floor, because Shea's going to be all NBA defense too. I don't know if he's going to be first team, but he's going to make all NBA defense. So he plays both sides of the floor, and that's got to count for something. We were talking about this before the show. Both things can be true. Shea's going to be the MVP, and Joker's still the best player in basketball.
And I think that's something that a lot of people, kind of forget about, right? Like, you can be the MVP, finals MVP. That doesn't mean you're necessarily the best player on the team. And, you can kind of go down the list of MVPs and, you'll see real quickly that that's true. Like, 2011, Derrick Rose was not the best player in the NBA in 2011.
He was not.
But he was the most, he led the Bulls to that 60, I think it was like a 62-20 record or something like that.
And what was the argument, though? Derrick Rose was the best player on the team with the best record, right?
Yep.
That was the argument. Well, this is the same thing. Shea's the best player on the team with the best record. Unless Joker and the Nuggets can overhaul him, Shea's going to be MVP.
Yeah, no, that's fair. When it comes to So I'll give the Nuggets credit, though. Jamal Murray has been slowly ramping it up. He's been, starting to look closer to the Jamal Murray that we saw in, 2023 when they won the title. So I'll give him credit. He went on a really extended cold streak, but, since the turn of the new year, he's been really ramping it up for them.
I'll give him that, but I think Jamal Murray has a very obvious kryptonite, and its name is Anthony Edwards. Every time they match up, Jamal Murray tends to shrink. Ant owns him. He owns him. And Minnesota, whatever you want to think, look, I don't think they're title contenders. I don't. I think there's levels to this. But if they should meet the Nuggets in the playoffs, would it stun me if they beat the Nuggets? No. Not at all. These two teams have the same flaws, but there's a difference. The Timberwolves don't have a lot of shooting. I'm talking about perimeter shooting. They don't. But what they do have is they're still a top 7 defense. The Nuggets don't have a lot of perimeter shooting, and at best, they're a middle of the road defense. I just think that we give Denver a lot of cred because of Joker. But do I think they're actually going to go on a deep play? No, they don't have enough shooting. They don't have enough depth. Joker is doing this with smoke and mirrors. I will say, look, if you get Jamal Murray, like you said, he's been for the most part coming off All-Star break on a tear. If you're going to have Jamal Murray playing like playoff Jamal Murray when he's looking like an all-star / almost a superstar, then the Nuggets have a legit shot. But if you get Jamal Murray the way he looks when they play the Timberwolves, I think they win a first-round matchup and they lose a second-round matchup. And look, if their first-round matchup ends up being the Timberwolves, I don't care if they're the top seed or not. If they play the Timberwolves, I think the Timberwolves are going to win that series.
I would love if the Minnesota Timberwolves won the NBA Finals, by the way, Mo.
Wow.
I would love
I know why. If I'm wrong, tell me I'm wrong. If the Timberwolves were to upset a couple of favorites, get to the finals, win it all, you would have to show love, not just for Anthony Edwards, because if they do that, it's because their defense is elite. And if their defense is elite, the credit's got to go to Mr. Rudy Gobert. Am I wrong?
Yep. No, I would love it. I love chaos, right? And if my Bucks don't win, I always opt for the most chaotic thing possible. And I would almost love to see like the meltdown on like social media and everything if they had to give credit to not only Rudy Gobert but Julius Randle.
Oh,
like
look, I think I would have a meltdown. Yeah,
like two of the most hated players in the NBA. Watching like NBA Twitter try to like give credit to them would be just the most hilarious thing ever.
It would be tough for me to give Julius Randle. No, I take that back. If he's earned it, I'm going to give him credit. I've always given Rudy Gobert credit. I've always said that Rudy Gobert is the kind of player that we're going to appreciate him a lot more when he retires. You know what I mean? We're going to appreciate him a lot more when he retires. But if they go on a run, Brett, and do something crazy and they win a title and Rudy plays great, obviously, because it's going to be about their defense. And let's say Julius Randle shoots 50% from the field and in the high 30s from 3, no turnovers, and he's a big part of that. Look, I'm going to have to eat some apple pie or humble pie because I've always said I'm of the belief that if Julius Randle's your second best player, it ain't going to happen. I'm steadfast in that. I'm not saying he's not a good player. I'm simply saying if you're a championship contender and he's on your roster, he's got to be your third best player. He can't be your second. And I still hold true to that. Like, I know you're holding out for chaos. I don't. If you're right, that's going to be amazing. And I think the internet literally shatters because how do people walk back everything they've said about Rudy Gobert?
Yeah, and listen, like, and I'll take it a step further. Like, I think it would be great. Not only that, like, if one of those two hit the game winner in the finals, like, you know, Ant takes the final shot but it misses, but like Rudy catches it. It's like a game-winning hook shot or something.
Or a tip in.
Yeah, like that. Or like tips it out to Julius Randle for 3. Like,
oh no, not the Ray Allen. If Julius Randle gets a tip out from Rudy and nails the 3-pointer that extends it to Game 7 and they win Game 7, yeah, I got to eat a lot of humble pie. But you know what? As a sports fan, I don't mind eating it. There's been times when I've been wrong on certain teams, on certain players. I remember years ago when Draymond Green was drafted. I said he's going to be a really good player, but I said he was going to be a role player, but a good player. You know what I mean? But a good player.
Yeah.
If you, I'm not going to lie. I said Draymond Green's going to be a 4-time All-Star, win DPOY, be a main cog in a dynasty. No, I did not see him being that. So he really surprised me being much more than I thought he could be. So shout out to Draymond. I've been wrong sometimes. There's been drafts. We all know there's been drafts where we go, this guy's going to be a beast, an absolute beast. And then he gets in the league and you're like, what happened to this guy? What happened? It happens. We're wrong sometimes. If the Timberwolves win the title, look, Minnesota, I'll come on here and do a lengthy speech about why I should apologize to your Timberwolves. I just don't think you have enough talent overall to win the title. I don't.
No, absolutely, and that's fair enough. The funny part with, I know, like I said, I've mentioned multiple times the biggest one I've gotten wrong was Giannis. I didn't think that, I thought he might become a role player, but it turns out I was very wrong, and I was very happy to be wrong. But yeah, no, absolutely. And let's see, if Banchero's won one of these teams, he would be mentioned more. I'd love. Am I switching Banchero and Jokic? Because I would absolutely love if like Jokic and Banchero played together.
What if that happened? Wouldn't that be interesting? That I don't know, some kind of blockbuster deal where Banchero ends up on the Nuggets. I guess you might have to lose Jamal Murray. Maybe some kind of way. Look, if that were to happen, that tandem would be very interesting because now you would have a 4. Is Paolo a 3 or I think he's a 3 that has the ability to play the 4, but I think he's primarily a 3. Still, let me ask you this. If you had to lose either Porter Jr. or Aaron Gordon and you knew the other guy coming in was going to be another forward, I'm assuming you're going to say Porter Jr.
You know what's funny about if it's Banchero, I might actually consider keeping Porter Jr. Because Paulo isn't always the most consistent shooter. If I mix him up with Aaron Gordon, that defense would be a lot more active. It would be great, but also that's a lot of rocky shooting to have to overcome if I'm playing a Banchero, Aaron Gordon front court. So I think that's one of the rare situations. Normally I'd go, yeah, keep Aaron Gordon, but if it was Paulo, I'd almost have to consider keeping MPJ just because, that 40% from 3 would be a massive boon for, playing with a guy like him.
That makes sense. You're going to lose some defense, but like Joker, Paolo's going to draw double teams, and Porter Jr. is going to have one job: make them open shots, which he can do. So, yeah, I think you give up a little to get a lot in the bigger run because remember, Paolo's nowhere near being close to his peak, right? He's still in the developing early stages of his career. He can get more efficient as a shooter, more effective as an overall player on both ends of the floor. So that's the scary part about him. He's not a finished product.
No, absolutely. And the Pacers truly where they belong rank-wise, in my opinion. Too much up and down. I think the Pistons and Magic are better, and they are the Hawks 2.0. What do you think about the Pacers, Mo?
I think they're a team that plays well at a certain tempo, but if you slow them down and make the game more about a half-court execution, they're not nearly as effective. The weird thing about the Pacers is this, and I don't know if you agree with this take. Halliburton's their best player. He is. But and he doesn't need to be their leading scorer to be their best player. My problem is the guy that's the number 2, who's the leading scorer, I believe is Siakam. I think at this stage, Siakam should be your number 3. I still think they're missing that one guy that's a natural closer. They don't have that on their roster. They don't have a closer. Halliburton can do it in spurts, but I'm talking about somebody that when everything breaks down and your sets aren't going correct and the defense has kind of got you on your heels, the guy that has that dog in him, but also the skill to create and get buckets late in games, they don't have that on their roster. And I think until they get that, they're going to always be good enough to go to the playoffs. They're going to be always good enough to maybe get out the first round. But I think that's about it. They're not a title contender. We always say there's levels to this. In the Eastern Conference, the Pacers are a playoff contender, and there's a big difference.
Yeah, absolutely. I do agree with that. I think they need a better second option than Pascal. I think he's a great player, but I don't think he's a second option on a title team. And I'll give all the credit in the world to Tyrese Halliburton. Since the start of the new year, he has ramped up his game. He's had 11 assists to 1 turnover, and he's averaging 18 a game. So I think he's shown that he can be the best offensive player overall on a title team. But yeah, I would love it if they were able to bring in maybe like another weapon, just a guy that can go in there and get a bucket, almost like a pure natural scorer when everything breaks down. So
yeah, you know what, you made a prediction, and I actually think your prediction is going to be on point when it's all said and done. Like, what they need is they need Devin Booker. Devin Booker's not going to end up in Indiana. We both know this, but I'm just saying they need that kind of guy. Put that guy alongside Halliburton and move Siakam down to where he should be. That becomes a scary team.
No, absolutely. And yeah, shout out to the Pistons. Just fantastic what they're doing. Like, yeah, it's a team, like I've said it before. It's a team that I thought was a 30-win team coming into the year. I thought that was a fair prediction, but JB Bickerstaff and company have, completely blown that out of the water. One advice I will say to the, Pistons, if I'm watching them, continue to be patient. Listen, you've seen this before, Mo. A lot of teams will all of a sudden get this really quick success and they'll think it's sustainable. So all of a sudden they'll overpay for players, sign these veteran guys like they're ready to compete when it's still a year or two too early. I don't want to see that happen. Ironically, we saw that happen with like the Hawks. They thought they were ready, went all in with a DeJounte Murray trade, which they were never ready to go all in. So I love what the Pistons are doing, but I also want to make this point of in the offseason, I hope they're smart, and I hope that they just continue to remain patient and trust the process.
I love that take. I would say this to Pistons management as well. You have to let Cade Cunningham, even though he's already a star, he's still developing. He's still learning how to be a leader. Jaden Ivey is incredibly talented, but again, another not finished product. So you have to let Ivey, Thompson, Jalen Duren, this young core, you have to continue to let them develop. And like you said, it takes patience. I came into this season, and the first thing I said about the Pistons that Cade Cunningham's mission should be as their best player is they had to establish respectability because they were coming off of a 14-win season. And early in the year, they had done that. And so I knew something was different. I'm not going to lie and tell you that I knew they were going to become as good as they are now, but they've exceeded expectations. But you make a great point. When you have this big above expectation year, then you get these over through the roof estimates of what they could be or should be. And with this young core, I think patience is the key.
Yeah, it's like anytime I see what they're doing, it just gives me almost flashbacks of was it the Phoenix Suns that made that one like random playoff run and they decided they were going all in with Isaiah Thomas, Eric Bledsoe, and Goran Dragic in the most bizarre like tandem we've seen in a minute. So, I see situations like that. I'm like, just don't do that, Detroit. Just learn from everybody else's mistakes, please. And by the way, I would actually love this for Detroit. Miles Turner will be a free agent. He's somebody that I'd love to see in Detroit. If you look at Cade Cunningham, one of his actual struggles this year is he's a lot worse finishing around the rim than you would expect. And I think Miles Turner would actually help that a lot. He's a guy that can, pull the shot blocker away from the paint and, help space the floor even more. So Miles Turner, I think, should be a free agent target for the Pistons or, at least get him in the building, have a cup of tea with them.
That would be a great pickup for them. Although I would say this, Miles Turner is going to be a guy that's going to be on a lot of teams' radars. If you're a contender and you struggle with spacing, a big like Miles Turner has all kind of value. Not to mention, he's a terrific weak side defender. Look, the Lakers would love to have a Miles Turner. I think a lot of teams would love to have a Miles Turner. So he's going to draw a lot of attention. I guess it'll come down to you like it always does, right? The money.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. But look at their track records, but also be smart and project what they're going to be in the future. I feel like people forget that part about free agency. They'll just look at here's what they did last year, and that's how you end up signing like Paul George at $50 million a year because he looked fine last year, or that's how you give Bradley Beal a supermax because He scored 30 last year. Like, doesn't mean he projects well going forward. That just means that he had a volume of touches on a bad Wizards team. So
how many times we say that I always say this to people: bad teams have leading scorers too. Do you know what I mean? Like, just because you're the leading scorer on a lottery team, it doesn't mean you're a great player. It just means you're the best player on that team, on that lottery team.
say, are you telling me nobody should have paid the max for John Salmons after he led the Bucks in scoring in like 09?
Yeah, look, I get it. But that is a great point about looking at what a player projects to be in the future versus their past, especially if it's a player that's 28 or over. You can't always go off their past deeds. Had the Sixers really done their due diligence and Daryl Morey not been so star-stricken, Paul George wouldn't be on the Sixers. When they made him that offer, they were bidding against themselves. Nobody else was going to pay Paul George that kind of money. Nobody. The Clippers had the man in the building for multiple years, and they were like, "Nah, we're good. You can go ahead and find it." Like, they didn't even say, "Paul, we'll give you this." It just was like, "Nah, you can go ahead. We're good."
That was the biggest red flag to me when, and by the way, like, Steve Ballmer's not a cheap owner. He loves spending money.
Right.
When Steve Ballmer is balking at like, yeah, no, I don't want to bring you in. To me, that's when I was just kind of like, oh boy, there might be a problem here. By the way, go ahead.
Let me ask you a question, partner. With the Clippers, when you see that they've kind of restructured things, like with Norman Powell gone, Harden is back to being the primary offensively. Kawhi is actually like the third option, but I think it's a smart way to play him because they've controlled his minutes. Do you think it's a smart way to play him and use him going forward? Like, is this the kind of thing you want to do with Kawhi Leonard for the rest of his career if you're going to get value out of him, if that makes any sense?
Yeah, I think it's best to use like almost like minimize his usage until it's playoff time. I think he's a guy that he's still going to have tremendous value. I have all the faith in the world that when it's time to, show up in the playoffs, he will, and he'll be really elite at it, and he's still a closer. But at the end of the day, we've seen, his body doesn't hold up if you give him too much of a workload at this point. You can't overwork him. So I think this is perfect. Kind of lock him in with a couple scores, a playmaker that can make life easy for him, and just give him that minimum workload as you possibly can until it's time for the playoffs. And then if you really need him to ramp it up, we've seen that he can. Like, I think this is great what the Clippers are doing.
No, I agree. And I think Kawhi is secure enough in himself where he doesn't care about his regular season numbers. I don't think he's like, man, I got to make like a couple of more All-Star. I don't think he cares about that either. Not at this point. I think now he's trying to just be healthy and be more valuable as he can late in a season. And you're right. His true value to any team, be it with the Clippers or if they should ever move him, is what he can do for you in the postseason.
Yeah. And you know what, Mo, I thought I'd have a little fun today. And I just thought about this because we're talking about the 76er guys. And I want to go back to my preseason predictive list on the top 30 players, Mo. And I want to just look back and let's have a little fun. Let's see how accurate this was. And I'd love to hear what you think, John, and everybody in the comments. So if you don't know, I just got this idea. Before the season started, I made a top 30 players going into 2025. But this isn't based on years past. This is a predictive list. This is how I thought the season was going to play out. So, Mo, I'm going to go down the list 1 through 30. And I want to see how well I did, in your opinion. All right. So, at number 1, got Jokic.
I think you've done great there. No surprise.
At number 2, Giannis.
I don't have a problem with that either. No surprise. They've both been everything they've always been.
No, fair enough. At number 3, Luka Doncic.
I mean, he's coming on now. Obviously, he was injured and didn't play a lot, but I think he's been very impactful for my Lakers. So I to this point, you're still looking good.
Number 4, SGA.
Again, like I said, your first 4 players, I must admit, you're very spot on.
I think 5 and 6 looks a little rough. 5, Joel Embiid. This is, before I realized his knee was just made of tenderloin.
Yeah. So 5 not so good, but 5 isn't about his playing ability. 5 is about his body breaking down. But yeah, I got you.
Oh yeah. Number 6, Steph Curry. He's come on lately, but probably a little too high for him.
I think Steph has played well. Got a little bit of a buzz.
Oh, fair enough. Yeah, and number 7, Wemby. I actually thought this was a great one before the blood clots.
I think that the season that Wemby was having on his way to being DPOY, I think you had that spot on.
Say number 8. Oh, my bad. Say number 8, Kevin Durant.
I think KD's been really rock solid, but not as good as maybe projected. Like you have him 8. I would say the season that he's had, maybe 12.
Fair enough. At number 9, Jalen Brunson.
I think Brunson has been everything that he's been projected to be. The Knicks are right in the thick of things in terms of the Eastern Conference. Brunson had another all-star caliber season. I think he's number 1 in the NBA in clutch points. So, yeah, that's a good pick. I can't even hear you. Yeah, your mic you might be having trouble with your mic. Now I got you. Oh, I had you. This happens every now and then, guys. Technical difficulties, so bear with us.
All right, can you hear me now?
Got you. I can hear you.
Okay. I forgot this is actually a mic that's plugged into my webcam. So at I forgot it. So 8, not at 8 we had Durant. 9
Brunson.
10 Jason Tatum.
I think Jason Tatum, that's a great pickup. I actually think he's been more of a top 5 or 6 player. I do. So that's a good call. You got great value for the Tatum pick.
No, this one was probably the most controversial one at the time at number 11. I thought this was the Tyrese Halliburton breakout year.
Yeah, I think he's been really good in the second half of the season. But if I was going to rank him, 11 would be pretty high for him right about now.
Say at 12, LeBron James.
You got great value. He's exceeded 12. LeBron's played himself into being a top 5 or 6 player. He is going to be in the MVP conversation. He's not going to win it, but just the fact that he's going to be in it, that's impressive.
No, absolutely. 13, I had D-Book.
I think D-Book's had a similar season to Durant. It's kind of been up and down, uneven. I would say normally he would be 13, but the season that he's had, he's probably maybe a couple steps back, 15, 16.
No, all right. Doesn't seem like I'm doing too bad so far then.
You haven't, not really.
At 14, Ja Morant.
Yeah, I can't rank him that high. I'm with you and I understand why you had him at 14, but considering that he's not even the best player on his team, he's probably more like 20.
No, that's fair. And I think one of the biggest misses, I'll let you know who's not on this list, is Jaren Jackson Jr. I did not think you'd break out this much. At 15, Anthony Edwards.
You got great value. I think he should be higher than 15. Ant's had a terrific season. He's improved upon his playmaking. He's extended and become a more consistent 3-point shooter. So I'm good with Ant.
So I did. Sorry, this is when I was having mic difficulties, but yeah, before the season started, I predicted Brunson would be the 9th best player in the NBA and Ja would be 14. So I had them both up high, but I always had Brunson ahead of Ja. Say at 16, went with Kawhi Leonard.
So you didn't get good value from this because he's missed most of the season. And when he came back, now he's come back and he's played solid, but he's in a completely different role now. He's not the front man anymore. Like if he was in a band, I guess Kawhi would be like the drummer.
It's fair enough. He was so tough to rank before the season started just because, like, when he played last year, he was probably one of the, 5 to 10 best players in the league, but then he didn't play much. So I'm like, I don't know where to put him, so I remember just having to put him here. 17, Anthony Davis.
He's had a terrific season. Now, obviously, the big trade, and then he gets injured and he's been out. But if you projected him 17, I would say the way he's played, he's outplayed where you put him when he's played.
Oh, fair enough. 18, Donovan Mitchell.
He's he's consistent, but he's the best player on the team that's the best team in the Eastern Conference right now. So I say you get great value out of that pick.
Say 19. Here's where I put De'Aaron Fox.
I actually think that he's probably exactly where he should be. He's a terrific player, but he was the terrific player on our mediocre Kings team at best. If Wemby were still playing, I think that the combination of Fox, Wemby, along with Vassell and the rest of them, they were on track to make the playoffs, but it didn't happen. I would say this: when you do your top 30 next year, I'll be interested to see where you project Fox, because I think I would project him higher next year.
Oh, absolutely. I'm definitely doing this again next year. This was a ton of fun, and it's a lot of fun to look back at. I actually am higher on Kyrie than most. I had him at 20.
He outplayed 20. 20. I think he outplayed Fox. He outplayed Morant. He's better than a lot of guys that are ranked way ahead of him this season. So yeah, he outplayed 20.
Don't worry. He's Jaylen Brown is coming up. Kyrie was 20, so Jaylen Brown is coming up in a couple of picks here. But this is what ended up being one of my bolder ones, and this is a guy who's almost lived up to it recently. 21, Zion.
So he hadn't played much, which is not new for Zion. But this recent, I want to say this last 2.5, 3 week run, he's been spectacular, right? Like he's been what you would project him to be. And really, if Zion Williamson could stay healthy, I'd have to assume you'd pick him a lot higher than that. He's kind of like Kawhi in that it's really hard to project because he doesn't play that much.
So Wemby was 7. Jaylen Brown is coming up. I don't think it's just too much of a spoiler that Jaylen Brown was in my top 30. But before him, and this is the spot before him. So at 22, had Damian Lillard.
I think Dame's had a solid year. The Bucks they're the contender that nobody talks about, if that makes any sense. I look at Dame's numbers. They're pretty much on track to what he's been for most of his career. Maybe his 3-point shooting is a little down, but I think overall he's about right where he should be.
And then at 23, that's where I projected Jaylen Brown to be. So 23 was Jaylen Brown.
You know what? He doesn't come with all the bells and whistles that a lot of guys ranked ahead of him come with. And maybe he doesn't have the most fluid and I don't know what you call it. If you were going to draw a picture, he didn't have the most picture perfect looking game. He just gets it done. That's the best way I can say it. Jaylen Brown is the guy that just finds a way to get it done. It's not always pretty, but he gets it done.
Yeah, he's a guy that, like, I don't think he's one of the, making this list, I didn't think he was one of the 20th best players, but He's also a guy I'd probably pick on my team over half these guys.
Yeah, same.
24. This is probably the worst value on the entire list. Paul George.
Yeah, so obviously you didn't get no value for that pick. Like
I really thought, Embiid would, play, and then between those three, they could share the load evenly, and, Paul George would still be this impactful player, but obviously that's kind of, fallen off a cliff. But at 25, before the year started, had Bam Adebayo.
I can't say he's been a disappointment. Maybe it's that the Heat overall, their performance as a team has been a kind of underwhelming. But if you look at Bam's numbers, they're almost on track to be what they always are, right? He's a really good player, but he can't be the centerpiece of your team, right? He's just a really good player. I think if you have Bam and he's the third best player in your team, you're definitely a title contender because of what he can do on both ends of the floor. But I don't think you lost any value on this pick because of what he is.
Oh, fair enough. At 26. Say 26. Yeah, so like I said, John, I made this one actually before the season even started. And yeah, for me, like, LaMelo had to show me a couple things coming into the year that the biggest thing when it comes to his individual game, because I'd love to see him impact winning, but I also understand he's also on the Hornets. But I needed to see him be just a lot more efficient than he has been in recent years. And that's just, as great as LaMelo has looked, that's one thing that's still plaguing him. Like, he is not an efficient scorer. He has just been more of a volume shooter. And I think he can be better than that. And that's frustrating to me.
I think he's a good example of a guy with incredible talent, but because he has incredible talent, we don't rank you on your talent. We rank you on what you do on the floor. So when you go the most talented point guards in the NBA, he might be top 5. But when we say the best point guards in the NBA, he ain't top 5.
No, fair enough. 26, Tyrese Maxey.
Really weird season because he was playing well. The team was god awful. And he's been struggling as of late because I think he's dealing with injuries. I think Maxey is better than where he's ranked. I don't think he was a disappointment. They just had a disappointing season, but I think you got really good value on picking Maxey.
Say, 27, Paulo Banchero.
It's almost the same thing. Paolo's still trying to play catch up and get his legs up under him and get back and get some rhythm with his team. This Magic team, it didn't look anywhere near like the team from last year. And a lot of that is guys in and out of the lineup. They still haven't gotten Suggs back. You know what? Maybe with guys like Paolo and Maxey, we would give them like incompletes, right? If we were going to grade them, incomplete.
Yeah. No, that's fair enough. 28, Domantas Sabonis.
I think he might be one of the harder guys to grade because if you look at him and the numbers, he fills out the stat sheet. I don't even know what he averages overall, but if I had to guess, he's definitely around 18, 19 points a game scoring. I'm guessing 13 rebounds, around 6 assists. Like, he is a very well-rounded, good basketball player who I think he should be ranked higher than he is. And at the same time, I don't know where. Like, he's kind of in the middle. I think he's middle of the road. Like, as we look at Bam, I think they're very similar. He's a better offensive player. Bam's a better defensive player, but I think they should be ranked next to each other.
No, absolutely. 29, I predicted that that would be Jamal Murray.
He's kind of had that kind of season, right? He hadn't done much in the first half. He has picked it up a lot, looking a lot like the Jamal Murray that we saw a couple of years ago. So I would say 29 is he earned that 29. He wasn't better than it. He wasn't worse than it. 29.
And I predicted the 30th best player in the NBA this year, Jimmy Butler.
You know what? The funny thing about Jimmy Buckets is he looking kind of 30-ish, and then he goes to Golden State and he gets the fountain of youth. He's outplayed where you ranked him to me. He's not their best player, but he is one of the main reasons why they've completely turned it around and gone from a team that was going to be in the play-in to a team that's going to be in the playoffs.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I'm actually kind of happy with this list because, like, I got most of the players on there, maybe just in the wrong order.
Yeah.
But, a couple misses, obviously. We're talking about misses. We mentioned Jaren Jackson earlier. The other one I have to mention, Evan Mobley.
Yes, that's a really good one. I would, if you said, well, what kind of year Evan Mobley's had? He's had a better year to me in terms of his impact than Bam had, right? You can make that case. And Evan Mobley is legit probably going to win DPOY.
Yeah. And then I think the other name I thought about was still on Cleveland. Like, I could make a great argument for Darius Garland to crack the top 30.
Absolutely. Look, with Garland, it's a mental thing. It's about his confidence. When he's playing with confidence and he's playing with freedom and not overthinking, he is one of the hardest guys to guard in space because he's so deceptively quick. He's got a really herky-jerky handle. He's a handful when he gets going.
No, absolutely. Yeah, that was just a fun little idea. So, you know what? Like I said, at the end of the day, my takeaway, wrong order, mostly the right names. So I can live with that.
I was gonna say, those lists aren't easy to do, but if I was gonna grade out, I'd say you got at least a B+ because you had most of the guys on the list. Maybe some of them were in different orders. The only guy that I really thought you missed on, you pointed out, was Mobley. Who else? It was somebody else. Oh, and Jaren Jackson. But we knew Jaren Jackson was good. I didn't know he was going to pop and establish himself as their best player. I didn't see that coming, but he did it.
Yeah, that threw me off too. So that's been a lot of fun to watch. Just the evolution of Jaren Jackson, just absolutely fantastic. So I'm definitely looking forward to seeing how the DPOY race and everything plays out. But that's all I had for us today, Mo. Do you got anything you want to add before you get up and out of here?
And no, I just want to thank everybody for joining you and I another episode of And One. Appreciate you so much, chat, especially John Suggs for being here. John Suggs was fire tonight. Appreciate you so much, man. Thank everybody for coming out. Thank you. Make sure you check out all the great content we have on Wire to Wire Network. Brett and I, this is leg one of our double-double. We will be back tomorrow. Morning show, Coffee and Sports in the morning. And I'm sure we're going to talk some NFL, some NBA, and, of course, some wrestling.
Say, that's why I put a little twist on our Friday morning show. I always call it Coffee and Sports Entertainment.
I love it.
Fun little tweak on it. Yeah, I definitely appreciate everybody for tuning in. I'd like to apologize about my mic issues. Hopefully I'll have that sorted out by tomorrow. But like I said, thank you for tuning in. And, before we get out of here, Lakers in 5. Apparently not if they're facing the Bucks. Yeah, before I get out of here, of course, I want to throw out there, Wire to Wire is going to be having a March Madness bracket. Big tournament, $20 entry fee. And we're hoping, it's to raise money for us to help with expenses, and then of course we'll also be giving away a $1,000 cash prize. So I'll be looking forward to it. So definitely check it out. If you want to know more, you can reach out to the NFL Genius for more details and the Wire to Wire page. They'll have all the info for you. But until then, thank you everybody. Definitely appreciate you guys, and enjoy the rest of your night.
Thank you for tuning in to the And One podcast. If you like our content, you can find more on the Wire to Wire Podcast Network on YouTube, Facebook, and Spotify. Want more And One? Find it on Wire to Wire. Like and share our Facebook page and join the And One Discord. Grab the link to join from our Facebook. Thank you for tuning in and have a wonderful day.